Okay. Yes. Hello. I'm Thomas Patzke. Some of you maybe know me from my work on Sigma, and I also have a day job. So Sigma is my spare time mostly, and I'm working as a cybersecurity analyst for a chemical company, and doing also threat intelligence in my job. And today I will talk about some challenge and how we solved it. Typical situation in a cyber defense team is we get questions from our stakeholders. So they ask us which threats are relevant for us, which threat actors are relevant for us, or are we affected by this threat that is now in the press, everyone in the internet is talking about. Is this relevant for us, or are we protected against it? And this has an effect on the cyber defense team because, obviously not everything that is reported on or that exists is relevant for especially a chemical company. The Russian influence campaign has definitely impact on the society, but for a chemical company, it's maybe a bit less relevant than other threats. And the impact on the cyber defense team is people are working on stuff, spending maybe even a lot of time on answering questions that are maybe not so relevant for the organization, or even the questions come sometimes in more quick than we can give answers, and then the analysts are skipping around between topics and get overloaded with work. And on the organization, it's we maybe spend money on mitigating threats, on protecting ourselves against threats that are maybe not so relevant for us. And therefore, we needed a solution to answer these questions. And the requirements were that we need something that is practicable, applicable, so no report that tells blah blah we are doomed and we have 20% more threats than last year. It's good to know, but it's maybe not something you can do something with, not deriving some action out of it. Another requirement, it should reflect our reality, not just the reporting, the public reporting, but it should show what are our real threats. Also we need to use some framework, talking a language that everyone understands, that everyone accepts, that we don't go into discussions about is this the right way to do this, or can we maybe do or use something that is already existing here. And also it's if you do this one time, after a while, you will do it again. Threats evolve, threats develop, and therefore it should be also reproducible, not by a single person, but by everyone from the team. On the other side, constraints. So translated into you get no money for this, you get some time and now do something. And this is the challenging task here. So especially cost savings means we are not able to buy some service from a threat intelligence company or incident response company, so the usual suspects, and do a request for intelligence, and then we are done. Usually this services cost a lot of money that we currently don't want to spend as an organization for this. Okay, so it's a high-level approach. So we have threat intel sources, different ones that are available for us, free ones, maybe some that come along with some other subscriptions that we can use. Then the first step is to derive the relevant threat actors that are relevant for us out of this. From this, then collecting all the techniques that the threat actors are associated with, and then creating the products out of it. So we use MITRE ATT&CK for this. And then I will show this later. I created heat maps, sheets, and so on. And finally, looking how this works, how people use it, and improve and repeat later, update it. That's what we wanted to do here. Okay, the first step, collection and sources. We had this approach that we have to take what we have and not being able to buy more here. And if you look at what you have in a cyber defense as sources, it's quite a lot. So first one is communities, so direct exchange, talking with people from other organizations, maybe in the same sector, very valuable. The MISP ecosystem, a lot of information about activities that you can get from there. Other open source or free resources like MyToAttack, Oracle, great resource for threat intel reports where you can search them. MISP Galaxy is also a very good resource here. Furthermore, I said we were not able to spend money specifically for this, but we already spent money for products in the past, and there are things from these services. So one thing was we had a feed reader, Feedly, for this, which does a quite good job into categorizing events and creating data out of it that can be used for this purpose. And also what vendors give to us. So if you have EDR, if you have mail security protection, whatever else, Microsoft, if you are a customer there, which many of us are likely, then you possibly get also some threat intel out of it for free. So I can just recommend log into this user interfaces, look what is there, and use it. And also the mails they send you on a regular basis, you maybe thought about it, it's maybe just marketing. If you look a bit deeper at this, sometimes it's really good information what comes along with it, which is also not necessarily public, and therefore usable for this purpose and gives you additional information. So the goal was here to collect as much as possible for our purpose. And this one, last but not least, is, I would say, the most valuable one, the own observations. So you handle cases, you handle detections, you see the activity, and these are your threats. So my favorite from the sources here. Then comes the next challenge. So we have a lot of sources, and now we have to select the information from the sources. Then the most obvious way is to say, okay, we are in the chemical sector, let's filter for chemicals. Okay, if you do this, usually a lot of threat intel gets very small. So when you search for threat intel from the chemical sector, it's not much anymore that reminds you for usage. So we have to look around. What can we do else? The chemical sector usually delivers their chemicals to a lot of other sectors. So pharma and biotech are some examples which also have very specific threat landscape and are interesting for threat actors. So are they maybe also relevant for us if we supply them with chemicals? Definitely they are, but if you look on what are our customers, it's almost everywhere. So it's not only pharma and biotech, it's also food production, it's personal care products. So if you just choose the chemical sector, it's very small what you get. If you put everything in what is our customer, it gets very huge again. And there's a question how we handle this here. And there's also a certain inaccuracy. So some sources don't even know about the chemical sector. They put this into the bucket with the manufacturing sector, which is also quite huge. So it contains a lot of different organizations doing different stuff that is not really associated with us. So also a challenge here to handle this. And another beast is opportunistic threats. Opportunistic threats don't care about in which sector you are; they just want to ransomware you or whatever else. And they are maybe not focusing on you, but they are relevant for you. So this has also to be included here somehow. Or maybe you decide to not include it for any reason. I will come to this in a few slides. And also the question, there's a lot of reporting, but is a threat that was reported 10 years ago still relevant for us now? So the threat actor might have disappeared or merged with some other cluster or whatever else might happen. They even maybe are not interested anymore in our sector, but switched over to a different one. What is relevant for us when you look at the timeline of activity? So finally, we went into this direction that we concentrated on the relevant targeted threat actors. So the opportunistic threats, if you put them in, you get really also a lot of threat actors that then get relevant for you. But this was mitigated a bit by the own observations, which also contains the opportunistic threats. So then we had to start to search for our sector. So this is also a bit challenging because it can be chemicals, it can be chemistry. If you search for these, you find things, you think, hey, is this really relevant for us? Then I saw, okay, there are also chemical weapons. We are not affiliated in any way with chemical weapons. Yeah, so we had also to filter out certain information from this. And then we get a set of actor names and aliases, and sometimes the UIs from the vendors even provided us attack navigator layers that we were just able to download and use them. And the final output of this step was on the relevant threat actors and the techniques that are relevant for us, which comes then. So one of my favorite sources I told before, the own observations. So what you see is, what is your threat? This is highly relevant, and therefore it's really ideal for this purpose. And if you look at this, it really introduces some threats that are not associated with our sector in any way in the public reporting, but we still were able to see activity from the threat actors and were able to add this even when the public reporting didn't provide the link to our sector. Even some actors were introduced local activity clusters that I wouldn't expect to have them associated with us. And it also introduces some techniques from the early attack stages, because we can clearly say if a threat actor creates some domain to target us, then this falls in the resource development sector, and therefore can also give you the hint that it's maybe a good idea to monitor for new domains that are somehow associated with you. It also introduces a lot of opportunistic threats. in the early stages, or how far they get into your environment. So initial access brokers and so on is also covered to a certain degree by the own observations. And because the own observations are so highly relevant, this was in our first iterations the part where we also said, okay, this gets some bonus score, so we score it a bit higher because of this relevance for us. Challenge for doing this with your own observations is you have somehow to collect this information, doing this continuously or doing this by on demand when you create this product. So there are different possible ways to do this, but it needs some active work, and it also needs that the data is available somehow internally. Then from actors to techniques, there are also some challenges. So if you have different sources, they name things differently. So my example here, APT41, has a lot of names, and you see it here. Even when it's APT41, it can be APT41 or APT space 41. Python sequence matcher has done a great job on resolving this, but there are also the aliases. So APT41 is also called Vinti or Wicked Panda or some different names. And there are some sources that give you that map between these aliases, but these clusters are not necessarily equal. So there are differences between these different sources, which is an inaccuracy because this should be a pragmatic approach. This is an accepted inaccuracy, and we can live with this quite good. And finally, we use the attack group to technique mappings, or also the news feeds, and what we have as information to map these threat actors to the techniques. Analysis, I already announced this. There's some scoring. So in our first iteration, this was just counting how many sources claim that this technique is associated with the cluster that we considered relevant. And then we calculate a score from it. So finally, it's a maximum of different sources, which is divided by this count. And the own observations get a bonus, as I said. And finally, this is normalized to 100, or we get a score between 0 and 1 here that says how relevant the technique is. The product that comes out of it, there are different products because there are different stakeholders that have different needs and need different formats. So one product is a attack navigator layer. You see it here. I have to reduct it slightly to keep this TLP clear. The main point here is you see different techniques that are more or lighter red, which means more relevant or less relevant for us. There are also spreadsheets that contain the data, like this very simple sheet you see here. That's only a mapping between technique and score, but also a more advanced spreadsheet. I will show here now. So this more advanced spreadsheet is more accessible. So it contains not only the techniques, but also the names that are associated with it, the tactics that are associated with it, the scores, the difference of the scores between former iterations of this. Then MITRE ATT&CK contains mitigations. So there is also a sheet sheet here that contains the mitigations and how many of the techniques considered as relevant map to this. We also mapped this to the data sources, so we basically took the whole MITRE ATT&CK data and mapped it to what is mapped also there. And there's also the possibility to use other sources that use MITRE ATT&CK. This is an advantage if you use such a framework. Atomic red team test cases are tagged with techniques, and therefore you can directly map this set of relevant techniques to atomic red team test cases. Some words on mitigations. So as I told, MITRE ATT&CK maps techniques to mitigations, but you have to be careful here because that mitigation is mapped doesn't mean necessarily that the threat is fully mitigated by the mitigation. It can be only a piece of the puzzle here, and this is what you should keep in mind. And also, defense in depth is required here. There's also some, not necessarily bias, but some mitigations are very general, like user account management or privileged account management. And some are very generic, like application isolation, which mitigates only a particular set of threats. And this is something that leads to overrepresentation of certain mitigations. So we see in this upper right graph that privileged account management is really has a lot of techniques that are associated with it. And if you talk with your stakeholders, I got aware about something that we talk possibly about different things here. So usually when you talk to someone from the management and say privileged account management, they think about a very expensive product that you can buy or you already have in place. If you look at MITRE ATT&CK and what they claim about mitigation, it's a huge bucket of different concepts like LAPS, just-in-time permission assignment, MFA, even pseudo, and so such things are contained here. And therefore, you have to align this word with when you communicate this to your stakeholders, that it gets clear what is meant on here before someone thinks that maybe something is mitigated with a very expensive product, but it's a different meaning here. Some statistics on this. So in our result, it was that you see here only 20% of these techniques were considered here as relevant, and the rest partially is not much relevant for us. And we already made 2 iterations of this, and the technique changes within slightly more than a year was around 10%. So it didn't change so much. So for us, this experience says it's sufficient to do this in a yearly interval and not more often, because it's not huge effort, but it's still effort of a few days to do this. Question, can we ignore the remaining 79% of techniques? So no, definitely you shouldn't do this. There are different reasons for not doing this. So the sources are biased. So depending on which sources you have maybe something you are blinded on and don't see this at all. So an EDR vendor usually has observations from the endpoint view, and this continues to mail security and so on. Threats also change and evolve, so this can happen very quickly, that something that was not done by a threat actor is done tomorrow, and then it's relevant for you. And the reporting usually is behind of the development. Instead of this, you should use this to identify gaps. So what is red in this attack matrix is definitely relevant. And if you are not, you don't have a good coverage for this threat, then you have obvious gaps that should be filled. And yeah, finally, it's about probabilities. So you should focus on what is probable, what will likely happen, but you shouldn't ignore what is white in this matrix. Yeah, then some further mapping where the data sources. So this has shown that especially endpoint telemetry, so raw endpoint data is highly relevant if you want to protect yourself against the threats. And this also justifies to have such high volume and therefore also expensive log sources in your data. And also for red teaming or atomic red teaming, we use this to map the test cases, and we're able to focus ourselves on the relevant test cases for the first iterations of doing this atomic red team testing. And we certainly will do later also the techniques that were not so relevant for us. But yeah, this is how it goes. You have now a tool to focus on stuff that has some importance. Yeah, so advantages and disadvantages. So it was done quite quickly, I would say. So it's not something that takes several months for several analysts. The first iteration was done by myself, and then my colleague took over the next iteration. I would say also after this was documented in the fifth iteration, the handover efforts were quite reasonable. So we had some calls, but he was able to do this on his own also. Yeah, I would say we have a good mix of different sources, so are not too biased to certain things here. Disadvantages, yeah, we in the first iteration, the differentiation was not so good between the different sources. So this is the ideas for the next iterations are that instead of just giving the bonus for our own observations, we will also do some further differentiation on how old the threat is, so that we don't have a hard cut off after a few years, but fading this out, that the threats get lesser score. Also by relevance, that we include the related sectors, which we didn't in our first iteration, and also maybe even including the credibility of the source for this. And opportunistic threats, the idea is, they are relevant, that we then include it with a lower score, and it's that also the public reporting is flows into this view. And yeah, that's was my presentation about it. So the whole thing lives from exchange, discussing. So if you do something similar or so, I'm really happy to discuss it with you, and maybe I can also privately show a bit more information and give more information about the details on doing this. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me here directly. I'm here until Friday afternoon, and else you can also contact me by mail. Thank you.